Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773's Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you on Power Talk. Thank you so much for making us part of your day today. And, you know, the spirits have a funny way of doing business. But, you know, I was on Facebook a few weeks ago, and I noticed this cat, Sailbus Gentry, who lives in Tucson, where I live. And I was like, you know, this cat's mutual, our friends. He's friends with all the pranksters like Babs and Walker and these cats. And so, you know, we friended each other. And, you know, next thing you know, I'm over at his house last Monday, and we're doing interviews. And I was over at his bus the other day, and he mentioned this other cat, Izzy. And I was like, Izzy? I said, what? I said, who is this cat? And he mentioned, you know, and it was just sort of bubbling around, but hazy. And I realized, I'm like, you know, I just got to stay out of my own way, because the lineage of pranksterism and the lineage of creation and magic goes beyond and carries on a lot farther than what we know in our modern contemporary history. And I got a chance today to speak to a guy who is really into constant creation and inspiration, and really trying to affect positive change in his world, and know that those frequencies will go out and raise the overall universal vibration. James Whetstine, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Good morning, Jake. How are you?
It's great to hear you, man. I wanted to start by asking you about, you know, the exposure that you had to the regional, I don't want to say beat poets, but the cats that, I mean, how affected were you by Ferlinghetti and William Burroughs and Ginsberg? You know, those guys seemed to show up everywhere. It wasn't just, you know, they were leading a charge of nonconformity, and I just wanted to know when you got hip to that.
Well, I've always enjoyed beat poetry. Ferlinghetti, of course, is the king. And many years ago, the fellow Ray Sewell, known as Ray, used to put people in. Anyway, and on Ginsberg's birthday, a call, and we had to just generate Stone Cold Jazz to back me up, and so I did a reading of Hall with this voice you're listening to now. Kind of sounded like Tom Waits.
Wait,
anyway,
wait, hold on. You. I need you to repeat you were very muffled, so just repeat that. Can you? I just picked up on the being backed up by the jazz band. Can you repeat that story?
Well, a fellow named Ray Sewell, also known as Shay, used to cook for the Grateful Dead.
Dude, are you Shay Ray Sewell? I did. He's looking down and smiling ear to ear. He had La Primavera, man. He was cooking with dried meats and organic veggies, hosting the Flying Karamazov brothers.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We got kicked out of the Holiday Inn in Cleveland, Ohio, for smoking dope with Chet Helms and Country Joe.
Oh man, what? Yeah. I mean, that's way. So anyway, were you a product of? I mean, Shay Ray, I think, moved up to Eugene in like '72, but this is preceding that, or when was this?
No, this was in. I believe it was in '97 when.
Got it. Yeah.
We were putting the Kesey bus on display at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And Shay Ray and I were there in my room, and he happened to know Chet Helms, you know Chet.
Yeah, Family Dog,
and,
sure.
And Country Joe.
Mm-hmm.
So Chet and Joe were in my room there with Ray, And we forgot that we weren't in Eugene, Oregon. We forgot to put towels in the doorway and everything. And this great big Holiday Inn is only 5 blocks away from the Rock Hall of Fame. So there we were, and we hadn't paid attention to the fact that all day long, school buses had been vomiting students into that hotel because they were going to go see the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame also. Well, all of a sudden, comes a knock on the door, and the 2 biggest cops in Cleveland show up to evict us from this hotel. It turns out that all these students had chaperones, attractive women in their 40s.
Of course.
And I don't know how those chaperones ever knew what dope smelled like, but they did.
Well, they knew what it smelled like, and they always were taught as good little kids that it was evil, the devil's stuff. So they knew that.
Yeah.
So how did you disarm?
Anyway,
did you disarm the security the cops, or how did that work out?
Well, it turned out it was an opportunity because Ray also knew a guy who was a doctor there in Cleveland.
Oh boy!
And he had a 3-story mansion up on the heights, and his wife was going to attend the birth of a new niece or a nephew at her sister's house. Well, Ray called Mark Warren, and we got into a taxi cab for $15. We ended up staying in this 3-story mansion in the Heights for 3 days, being chauffeured around by the doctor in a BMW. And, well, it's an ill wind that blows nobody some good. But that's how we ended up as a result of getting kicked out of the Holiday Inn at 1 a.m.
But I mean, going back to, this period of time, I remember, I've done maybe 8 interviews with Hugh Romney, otherwise known as Wavy Gravy, and he was, a certain period of time with the hog farm in the 60s. He actually was going up to Hartford to the line there was a club up there, and he was bringing up Jimmy Jufrey and Jackie Byard and Don Ellis. These are like shaman jazz cats, and they would be, playing jazz, and he'd be riffing poetry. And then, Hugh Romney was one of the earliest. I mean, he's sort of like a teenage beatnik, he called himself, but he was doing stand-up poetry behind with jazz bands backing him at Boston University, before anybody else was. And I'm just trying to go back. What were you doing artistically, creatively to access your multidimensional self in the early 60s?
Oh, in the early 60s, I was Nebraska transplant. I left Nebraska at the age of 18 years, 1 month and 5 days. Income and raising kids and being pretty bland at the time. And I got involved with jazz poetry in the probably the 80s. And
so let me ask you. So yeah, you were doing the. Was there a definitive point? We don't have to focus totally on jazz poetry, but was there a demarcation point when you said, I'm going to start living life by my own rules and not the rules that society says I should live by?
That occurred when I got divorced at the age of 30.
Okay, yeah, that
was in 1968. That was right there in the heart of the sexual revolution.
Absolutely. So let's break that down. I mean, first of all, it's a very liberating thing, and after 13 years of marriage to the mother of my children, I still love her. I'm not in love with her, but it is absolutely, I can be myself. So please take it away. What did you do? How did it fundamentally alter your consciousness, and what did you do?
Well, I met a whole bunch of more liberal, creative people, and I got involved in doing stage. I was enticed into some local plays, and I acquired something of a reputation as an actor locally. Then there was a movie filmed here in '62 with James Stewart as the star. Shenandoah was the name of it.
Wow.
And I was a Confederate soldier.
Whoa. You're talking about, when you say here, you mean Eugene.
Yeah, right out of
Hold
Eugene.
on. So wait a minute. This is so insane, dude. You're telling me that you got divorced from your wife in Nebraska in '68, or you had already moved to Eugene?
No. I was out here in Oregon.
So that's what I want to. How did you wind up in this ridiculous pioneer country out there? What brought you to Eugene?
Well, my brother had come out here 4 years previously and had gotten a job on the railroad. Now, the little town I lived in Nebraska, there were not too many opportunities unless you wanted to go out into the fields and start bucking hay bales.
That's right.
So I did that for one summer and learned that I did not want to buck hay bales on a regular basis. So I came out here and got a job on the railroad, and like I say, settled into the rather stodgy life in the burbs until the divorce occurred. I got married in '59 and divorced in '68, and in between I had gotten involved a little bit in acting because they wanted a guy with a beard being in a Civil War movie.
Just the beard? I mean, I'm sure you had a little bit of. Anyway, go ahead. So Shenandoah, I got to check. I got. So that was filmed, but you were in what was the town you were in? It was a suburban kind of thing.
Well, I lived in Eugene at the time.
Okay.
And they had an ad in the newspaper that they needed people with facial hair because this was a Civil War movie being made, and so I went down and got a role in the Civil War movie. And after that, people were aware that I wasn't afraid to be filmed, and I got a bunch of stage work in local plays, theater groups, and became fairly famous locally for being semi-insane.
Absolutely. I mean, join the club, man. I mean, I feel like I'm speaking to a spirit elder right now. Because like Wavy was in there was the committee in San Francisco. You had Second City, where Alan Arkin and all those original Saturday Night Live cats came through. And so, what was the preeminent acting brigades in Eugene that you were hooking up with?
Well, the first people who enticed me to be in a play were members of an encounter group. You're not old enough to remember encounter groups.
Please break this down. No, I want to know, what does that mean? What is that?
Well, they were people who did not feel fulfilled.
How do you spell it?
And they decided, like the old Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland, let's do a show. So one of their members had written a play, and they enticed me to become involved in their play. The name of the group was the Uptight Players.
Wow. And how do you spell the word that you said they were unsatisfied, but you used a certain term that I was too young to know?
Well, encounter group.
So it's ENCOUNTER?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So then that group, and this was like essentially like 65-ish, or is that kind of around the time, or mid-60s?
Well, no, it was about 68, 69.
68, because I just want to be clear, Shenandoah was filmed in 62, right? Is that what you said?
Right around that time.
Okay. So then you kind of just got your sea legs, developed a reputation. What was it like? To me, it's like the arts. I mean, it's so painful and tragic what's happening on so many levels with this novel virus, but it's very obvious to me that in the corporate paradigm that we in the multinational corporate paradigm that we live in is that art, music, and art is no longer seen as a viable working profession in this country, and it's very dangerous and scary. And it wasn't always like that. Guys like Dizzy and Miles, they weren't millionaires, but they were compensated, and their music was seen as a viable profession. And I just wonder, were you able to, even in those early years with the Encounter Cats, and were you able to get ahead in the art world, make a living?
Oh, I never quit my day job.
Which was what? What was that?
Well, I was working as a yard master for Southern Pacific Railroad.
I did. Okay, so that was it. You were locked into that gig. It was good money. Okay, so you did. So the acting was just something to get a spiritual release, and it was you got off on that.
Yeah. It never kept me out of the saloons, but it was something to do.
So continue on. So tell me a little bit about. I mean, like Izzy said, when the meatball fell, meaning psychedelics, it hit everything. It didn't just hit San Francisco proper or the Haight-Ashbury, or it hit Eugene. It hit everywhere. It hit Topeka, New York. I mean, it came down hard. So can you talk about the psychedelicized performances of that late 60s period?
Oh no, Jake, I was a deprived child.
I know. I know. I can tell. I can really tell.
I was a booze hound up until I was 40 years old. Then I met this fella from San Francisco who he smoked dope, and he introduced me to dope, which was quite a startling revelation for a 40-year-old.
Yeah, man, dude. I mean, just for day. That's great. So you actually. That's great. So you were just knocking back. You were boozing it up, but you got, and then you got hip to herb. You just kind of looked the other way. You can't tell me that you weren't hip to at least knowing what it was. You just didn't.
Oh, I knew it was going on.
Yeah.
Hey, I was reading the Realist magazine back in the
So
middle 60s.
you were just like, I'm cool. I'm having some. You were drinking basically. So you smoked weed.
Yeah.
The doors of perception opened.
At the age of 40.
At the age of 40, which is essentially 10 years. Let's see here. You were 30 when you got divorced, and that was in 68. 68.
Yeah.
So 7. The year I was birthed, Izzy, is the first year you smoked marijuana. That's freaking awesome, dude.
We both came alive.
So basically, talk about the brilliance. Who were some of the unsung brilliant actors of that scene pre-marijuana for Izzy, like late 60s, early 70s? Like, who are some of the cats that don't ever get recognized? Because this is a whole area, like this is a whole regional area that I'm not hip to.
Well, brilliant actors nationally, internationally.
No. I'm saying in the enclaves of play acting that you did. Who were some of the legendary local cats that you collaborated with?
Oh, well, there was a fellow named Ed Ragazzino.
Ragazzino?
Yeah, you know Ed.
No, dude. This is why I need Izzy, man. Break it down.
Well, Ed was an instructor at one of the local high schools, and he was putting on big Broadway musicals every summer. There would be a summer musical, and the goal was to acquire monies and backing for a local performance hall, which became our Holt Center.
Are you kidding, dude? Thank you very. By the way, nobody knows this. Well, of course, who am I to say? I've never even been in the place. When that place was first built, now it's before COVID, I have dear friends. My friends Barry and Jenny, who are around your age. They live in Eugene, and Jenny works at the Holt, and it's more of a performance place now, and for classical music or I don't know,
Well,
whatever.
it's a home. It's a home for the ballet and the
But
symphony and
let's
the
be clear. Let's
concert
be clear.
choir.
When it first opened, there were
Oh, at first,
there was no there are seats now that go all the way up to the front. At the beginning, when it
yeah,
first opened, there was a huge dance area because I've seen videos of the Dead there in '83 and '84, and people are up boogieing down. Man, that place was magic, man. This
Robert Cray opened.
exactly.
He was
So,
yeah
so
he
anyway,
was
so Ragazzone. What's this cat's name, by the way? Who's this guy's name?
Ed Ragazzino.
Ed Ragazzino was raising funds in the early '70s for what eventually
Well,
became before that.
before then, yeah, he'd been putting on these summer musicals.
Oh, this is great.
He
Oh,
did
this is
he
great.
did the first local presentation of Fiddler on the Roof. And I was Fred the Jolly Villager in Fiddler on the Roof. I remember, carried the spear, and was a part of that scene. That acting milieu, as we call them.
Milieu. I love that
And
word. Yeah.
yeah, well, anyway, I was active in theater during those years, and as a matter of fact, Jake, just a little sidelight.
Yeah.
I've been married. I got married 2 years ago in July on the 17th, and it was a hot day. I was 80 years old at the time.
Holy cow, dude! The fountain of
Yeah,
youth.
yeah. Well, I got a trophy wife.
Dude, are you
She was
kidding me, dude? Izzy, man.
she was only 67.
Oh,
See,
dude, you scored, man. That's freaking no. Honestly, mad props to you, bro. Seriously, that's unreal. That's fucking great.
anyway,
Yeah.
we got married in the lobby of the Holt Center
I
because
just the memory. Again, I was just a wee little boy, but there are these really scraggly VHS tapes. Someone literally brought a handheld VHS camcorder, whatever they looked like in '83, into the general. They had a general admission dance floor at the Holt. Doesn't exist anymore. They had a freaking dance floor there. People were boogieing down. It was the most and then actually that's I just sort of got, like you said before, about tunnel vision. I get real locked into this early '80s period of the Dead, and there's this. They played there in the fall of '83, and then were summoned back in May of '84 because Jed Kesey had died tragically, and they played a show there at the Halt before it was converted into. I think it's really awesome. We got married there, but I mean, they're trying to bring in. It's a bottom line place now. They have to bring in acts that they make money in, or they're going to go under. This was there's this. I'll send you this later, but the last night of this '84 run, Kesey is during Space is riffing and crying. Babs is blown his bone, but Kesey's crying, like he's wailing out. He's in full form. But that place, man, I know it's been converted. I know it's still there. That place was magic, and I am so proud of this guy that raised the money to do it. In any event, really, because and I've never even set foot inside the place, but man, it what a heady place. Anyway, continue. I don't. So you were in Fiddler, but then like what? You kept your day gig the whole time, so you would finish up work for the day and then head over to. How would you be able to hone your chops, your acting chops? Like, was it a daily thing, or was it a weekend thing, or how did it work?
well, the local theater groups, they would perform like on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I had flexibility for the shifts that I would work because the railroad was a 24-hour a day deal. So I could work a midnight shift and do my stage gig and then go to work.
Wow.
And of course they had extra people who were capable of doing my job just as I did it. So I could lay off, and people would be called to take my place, and I could do whatever I wanted to. I got away with murder. We got an
Well,
echo here, Jake. Are you hearing it?
no, I hear you great, man. But you say, I
Well,
mean, no,
maybe it's just on my phone. Maybe.
no, I mean,
Anyway,
but I mean, I want to be very clear. I mean, it wasn't like you were like, punching the clock and then, not really being at work. I mean, you were a productive citizen. You lived through the golden era of essentially union work and public sector work.
yes, yes, indeed. I owe a great deal to the unions.
Well,
They made things possible.
yeah. I mean, it's so you got to you were living this. Were you able to retire? Like, so when did you? Um, you were in some. So you were already in. You had been in Shenandoah as a Confederate officer. What was your next film date?
Well, that was Animal House.
All right, let's just go through that. How? Because here's the deal. I interviewed Catherine Wilson, and she said that the director, brilliant cat, I can't remember.
John Landis.
Landis and Belushi went down to Kesey's farm to try to convince him to play the role that Donald Sutherland wound up playing. And Kesey didn't want to do it, and so they got Sutherland. But that was all filmed at the U of O campus. So please take me through the entire. How did that whole thing develop for you?
Well, I was home on a Sunday evening having dinner with my family, and the phone rang. And it's I think it was Bob Laird who said that they were having a movie made in Eugene and they had a part that was just right for me. And would I come down and read for it? So I came down and I read for it. And I had a beard at the time. And they told me that they were paying the local extras $20 a day for being in the movie, but that I would have to shave my beard because I was going to be playing this janitor's role. And the janitor's name, just as a sideline, was Mr. My Colostomy.
Right.
But I was going to have to shave my beard for $20 a day, and I told him no, I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to shave my beard for any $20 a day. So they offered me 50.
Wow.
Testing my principles.
Whoa, dude. Because I wouldn't. I mean, maybe if someone was today, even $50, I would shave today. Did you take them up on that one, or did you? What happened?
I sacrificed my principles and shaved my
Good
beard.
for you. So $50 was the. Everyone's got a price. So Izzy, 50 bones a day for the janitor role.
Yeah, that's what happened, and so I got to be Mr. My Colostomy for $50 a day. I made several appearances, and got to. There was a scene in which a fellow named Bruce McGill rides a motorcycle up a set of steps.
Oh, I know it well.
Yeah, well, I got to be up there at the top of the set of steps. They ran a real loose show there. People could come in and look, observe. So I wasn't involved in that scene, but I got to be at the top of the staircase when Bruce rode that motorcycle.
Oh my God,
up.
I cannot wait to go back and see Izzy, dude. So you're beardless at that point, though?
Yeah, I was beardless, but I was in that chainsaw scene where they had theoretically the dead horse in the dean's office.
Right. I'm trying to flash on that. I know that film pretty well, but it's just so. This is beyond classic, man. I mean, were you like the cat that called you? Who was he? The Laird cat? Was he part of the film?
Well, he was Catherine's real close associate. They had an outfit called Far West Action Pictures,
Sure.
and Catherine was kind of one of the premier figures in that, and Bob Laird was an associate. He was one of the locals. He and I, and well, we had all known each other from hanging out at a place up by campus called Taylor's Coffee Shop. We drank our beer up there.
Wow.
And so Bob called, and I got involved with the film, and then of course the darn thing took off, and I was recognized. I made a trip to Ireland a number of years ago, and I was recognized by a couple of people who were crazy about that film.
There's more than a few, yeah.
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 So anyway, it had its benefits, but I got a free drink in Ireland.
Yeah, I mean that's so classically, but at that time, so okay, because I've talked to, let's see, I've talked to guys that were at graduate school at U of O in the early '70s, other people that were around, and they really, I mean, they weren't super close with the Merry Pranksters, but they definitely recognized their presence in and around the greater Eugene area. Do you remember the first time that not that you engaged or became friends with them, but that you were aware of them wreaking havoc in society?
Well, when Cuckoo's Nest came out, I loved that book. And well, Kesey's an extraordinary author.
Sometimes a
But
great notion.
I probably read
yeah.
Cuckoo's Nest a half a dozen times. So, and also sometimes a great notion.
Amazing, yeah.
I've got all of Kesey's books. He autographed them with artworks. So I bought everything that he had printed from Kesey Productions, and got the artwork, nice artwork by Ken, to Izzy from Kesey. So
I love it.
Yeah.
But I mean,
And,
so you knew him by the book. You knew him by the books, but was he a presence in the like? Did you know him from afar? Did you see him? When did you first? Because I mean, those guys were all over Eugene. I mean, they Shea Ray, all those cats, as Babs said, they went under the concrete in '67 because, they got invaded. San Francisco got invaded by everybody else in the country coming there to seek the summer of love. And they all bounced up to Eugene in the early '70s. So I feel like you had to have been hip to them before Animal House.
Oh yeah. I was aware of them, but I was running my own carnival.
So there were multiple carnivals going on.
Well, I had a collection of guys. We were river people. I was on the river, and Kesey was on the road.
Oh my
But we had the bases covered. And in '94, I wore a derby hat and smoked a cigar. And the premise upon which my run for mayor was grounded is that I looked like a mayor.
Right.
So we made a big joke out of my running for mayor. Had a great time. Got a lot of good publicity, and quite a few more votes than I really deserved. But Phil Dietz was a friend of mine at the time, and he was a close compadre of Kesey's.
Who is Dietz? I don't know this cat. So talk about that. I mean, I just want to hold on a second. Catherine. So Animal House, was that I mean, Kesey didn't partake in the film. Was that when did you first officially meet him?
Well, let me see. Uh, they had canceled a Grateful Dead appearance here in Eugene, so Kesey held a session out at the farm,
Yes.
and I got to go to it as a result of being a friend with Dietz. And I was able to say hello to him at that point.
What year is this?
Then,
What year?
oh God, it was probably in 90, 91, something
Interesting.
like that.
So yeah, maybe 92 because Garcia went. He collapsed in 92, so it's possible that that might have been the time. So 92 Dietz.
Dietz, Philip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did he know? So how was he connected to Kesey and connected to you?
Well, he was part of the Springfield Creamery crowd. He worked there, and his
Oh
wife
boy,
worked
Chuck.
there.
Oh boy, here we go. Now we're going somewhere.
So anyway, I got to go out to the Kesey farm and saw. Well, there was quite a bit going on at the Kesey farm at the time. People came and went. It was a mecca for a certain kind of people. And after that, Kesey did a show called Twister. And
Yes.
are you familiar with it?
Yes, George Walker and Bad. But yeah, But please go ahead. That was the. So you're talking early '90s is Twister, and you got involved with that.
Yeah, I got involved with that in '94.
Okay, and then what was that? If I remember correctly, it had something to do with the Wizard of Oz characters.
Yeah, it was a modern day Wizard of Oz
Modern
in
day
which,
Oz. Yeah. Okay, break it down.
anyway, many years ago, previously, I had a monk's robe made with the cowl and the rope belt and all that business. And I used that and in the show, and Kesey had me out in front. I was wandering around through the audience with a lantern, looking into people's faces like I was Diogenes searching for the honest dude.
Okay.
He came up with that idea when the first show that I did with him. I was standing out in front of the theater with my towel and my walking stick and all, and some guy went by on a bus, looked out, and he made eye contact, pulled the cord, got off the bus at the next corner, and came back to talk to me. Well, Dietz told Kesey about that, so Kesey decided that I was going to be the front man. I was going to be the energy in the audience.
Wait, hold on. I just want to be clear. Because of your appearance and Dietz, then Kesey's like, this guy might be a perfect person to satiate the audience. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Kesey, he wanted everybody to participate.
Sure.
He wanted the audience in on the deal.
Of course he did.
So that was my job to pump a little energy into the people out there in front. And so I went down to the local Albertsons store and bought a whole bunch of these hard candies. So I was passing out hard candies and condoms out in the audience.
Was this at the Holt Center?
Well, we did the grand reopening at Fillmore there in San Francisco.
The newer. So the Twister show wound up. You took it on the road.
Yeah, we did it in Boulder, Colorado, and Seattle. We did it at the Bumbershoot Festival a couple of nights in Seattle.
Sure. Hold on for a second.
Boise.
And what was that now? Talk a little. That's so interesting. I mean, the early, very different time. Like, was it? What was the transportation? Were you taking a bus? What were you guys? How did you get around? What was the tour like?
Oh, I would either drive in or fly in. I didn't spend the entire time with the crew.
No, what I'm
I
saying
had,
is
you
like
know,
but I'm saying like if you were going to Seattle, there was a budget for you to buy a plane ticket to fly up there.
oh no, I always paid my own way.
So so this is so funny. Like I mean, these shows because obviously you had your gig, you know, your day gig or whatever, you know, the railroad gig, but this wasn't. Were you paid for being in the shows when you went to those places, or you none of that even really? Um, you know, I mean,
No,
we're such a bottom line society now, but you're actually saying that this wasn't this had nothing to do with the bottom line. I mean, were you
oh
compensated for
no, no, I was just having fun.
and you were able to do that because you had a really good gig, but I mean, was there any budget? I mean, how would you go on a tour? People like
Well,
Yeah,
Kesey, I think Kesey, he roomed and boarded them,
right.
all except me. They would stay in. Well, the organizations that were contracting with Kesey to put the show on, they would provide hotel and meal accommodations.
And
But
Babs was in it too.
yeah, Babs and a fellow named Arzenia
Oh my, dude, he's my boy, dude.
Richardson.
Arzenia Richardson, man, the nastiest upright bass player in the world, man. Dude, that
well,
dude's a nasty
his,
player.
well, his son Eric, you know Eric,
No,
he up until he was the president of the local NAACP. He played his bass in my backyard more than one time.
wow.
And Arzenia's got another very, very talented saxophone player, Drumson. Yeah, it's quite a family.
Well, no, did you know? I mean, were you hip? Were you into them? Because there was a guy down there who was like the godfather of music in Eugene. His name was shoot Earl King. Does that name
No, you think it's Sonny.
Sonny King? His wife is still. Did you know Sonny?
Oh, well, hell, I watched Sonny and Nancy in the old place called the Sahara Club in about 1962.
I knew it. Dude, they were.
And Nancy,
Yeah, go ahead.
Nancy and my wife were friends from Portland. Well, we went. Yeah, Nancy, she's still singing.
She's still singing. Well, I mean, I hope she can get back on the. I got to get an interview with her. But I mean, Sonny was iconic down there. Arzenia linked up with him, and Arzenia was part of the Portland Symphony Orchestra, and they had that pirate radio station KLCC, where Arzenia had Ornette Coleman on and Bill Evans on there. Yeah, it's just the whole thing is so beyond magical. Now, okay, so let's just be very clear. When you first started to cook the groove with Kesey and the pranksters in the Twister show, were was that did you get a chance to get psychedelicized with them?
Oh yeah, yeah. There was every now and then there was a little bit of LSD around. I never really took heavy on LSD, but I was a smoker.
Uh,
I'm fairly innocent, really.
well,
Really, as far as the drug.
I'm going to ask you about the first time you tripped out was with Kesey.
No, no. I was down on the Rogue River. Beautiful sunny day.
Oh.
Wonderful time. Surroundings were perfect. And after that, this story involves Mark Sailbus Gentry.
Bring it on.
Her room. She was here at the house. I was down at the Vets Club, and at about 11 o'clock in the evening, Mark said, "Stick out your tongue." And so I did, and he puts a tab on my tongue. And I didn't pay any attention. I didn't realize what I had just committed myself to. So about midnight, I decided to come home and go to sleep.
I don't mean to laugh, dude. I don't mean to laugh because you know what? I'd be tweaking out, dude. Tweaking. Wait, you didn't know what it was? You really didn't know what it was?
Oh, I knew what it was,
You
but
just
I
didn't know how
didn't know what
potent it.
I
Yeah,
was.
okay, yeah, I did.
I didn't know what I was committing myself to. I was just,
Go ahead.
so. I come home and I'm trying to lay down and go to sleep, and I get the whips and the jingles, and I don't want to make a bunch of noise and wake this lady up, and so I would be up and down and up and down and pacing the floor,
Oh
and
my God, dude,
I
that's
yeah,
insane. Jesus.
anyway that that was my second experience. Now the third experience involved Mark also, and we were down at a hot springs place on the North Umpqua River. Beautiful, beautiful surroundings. And he comes to me again and says, "Stick out your tongue." So I stick out my tongue, knowing what I'm up for. Sort of knowing what I'm up for. And it turns out that he had folded 4 hits up, 4 little tabs, and had given me all 4 at once by mistake.
Yeah, right. By mistake.
Well, he says by mistake, and I trust him.
Yeah. No, he's a great cat.
But I was hanging on real heavy, trying to keep from falling off of the earth that time. And
Oh my God. So can you
it was
talk
like I
about?
say,
Can you talk about honestly, like at that point, um, did you have to discernibly pray for a sign in order to stay on the earth? I know what you're talking about. How did you stay? How did you not
oh,
keep from falling apart?
well, I'm Germanic descent. I'm a very practical person. Got a lot of self-discipline. Well organized, that sort of thing. And I just willed myself to not jump into the river and drown.
Oh my God, man, dude, sail
But
busted. Yeah.
I was surrounded by a whole bunch of very, very caring, beneficial people.
That helps a lot.
And every now and then Mark would come to me and hand me a beer. And there was a very lovely young lady, Amanda, who had the greatest smile in the world. And I remember hanging on to Amanda's smile. So that was my reality.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Uh,
right. That's right.
and there was lots of food, and there were lots of people chopping firewood. And we had this nice fire under a shelter in the rain. And it was a good experience. I went back into Mark's bus, and he had painted constellations, stars and moons and things like that up on the ceiling of his sleeping area. And I laid there in that sleeping area and hallucinated thighs and breasts. Thighs and breasts, I was buried in them. Now, that's not a bad experience at all.
Dude, it's absolutely. So, I mean, I'm just curious. I mean, none of those guys, you know, Walker, Kesey, Babs, I mean, they were all fully into adulthood and 30 years removed or so from the being on the road. But how would they use psychedelics? Would it be in a situation where they would actually write script for the Twister show, or would it just be out in the farm hanging out? I mean, to me, it's interesting because the acid tests, even though I know you weren't privy to that. I mean, that was like, this was just like, in SoCal, like they'd have parties at Babs's house, and he'd be on a microphone like, "We're taking off," and Mountain Girl would be there riffing, and it was very kind of innocent and also kind of exclusive, even though they weren't excluding anybody, just was musicians and pranksters. But then, how were they? I always look at psychedelics, especially in small doses, when you're not like hanging onto a smile or, like you're just trying to, like when you're really in the groove, like how important it is for evolution, ego death, and how it can be used in mainstream society. And I just wonder how those cats used it when in that '90s pocket when you were collaborating with them.
Well, I never was all that tight with them when they were doing creatives. I got involved with the shows, and every now and then I'd go out to the farm and busy myself with chores and have a beer, that sort of thing. But their creative times were never they never included me. Not that much. I was a bit player
Well,
in that.
that's better than being no player at all. You're a bit player. Um, um, can you talk about uh, Izzy? Um, in your mind, you step back from it all. Um, what are the elements, spiritual elements, that are sorely lacking in our culture, civilization today that were present at a time? I mean, you alluded to a few things. Well, first of all, the idea of making a very reasonable living and getting ahead, and still being able to get stuff out of your system uh, as an actor. That's really hard to do today. You talked about being able to just sort of waltz into a movie scene. Talk about Hollywood now. You were up in the stairwell when that dude drove the motorcycle up there. So accessibility, upward mobility, um, value in the arts, and then just sort of creative, brilliant bravado and writing in the form of Cuckoo's Nest and sometimes a great notion, Twister Show. Beyond that, I just want you to talk to people out there about the spiritual elements that we need now more than ever to cultivate. Um, because there was no roadmap. There was no roadmap when you were a bumpkin in Nebraska, and there's no roadmap now. So, what would be your advice to younger cats?
Well, I don't know that I've got a great deal of advice to give them, but I will say that my experience with LSD, I had to abdicate control. Things are just beyond your complete control
Right.
when you're on the trip. And that's a valuable lesson. And it's something that it seems America is obsessed with now,
That's right. You're
is
damn right. You're
control.
100% right. Well, and it's just, and it's not even. It's like a few hundred people having control of everybody else. You realize that? I mean, there's about 500 zillionaires and multinational corporations that control everyone else at this point. The inequality
And
is as
down here on the bottom level, we got those goons with their assault weapons and their pickup trucks and their American flags and their Confederate flags and their Nazi flags, all inflicting their viewpoint on those of us who just want to get along.
hey man, you know what it is? It's a grievance. It's a very twisted time, and a lot of those cats are, uh, they think that people are talking down to them, but it's a shame because they're really spewing hatred and they're pushing against their own best interests. I wonder how you tend to, you're a pretty fearless guy. You know, I don't, no one's a prophet or can't see the future, but, you know, in the past, the pranksters. I mean, it's in my book. I mean, you'd have anti-war protest, Vietnam War protesters. You'd have the patriotic American protesters. You'd have FBI, and then all in this one area in Berkeley, and it was getting very hostile. And those guys would come in with humor and offbeat stuff, like offering dentine gum to a a group of people that were ready to go to blows. And it sounds simple, or Kesey's playing Home on the Range with his harmonica and then letting everybody know how to identify the undercover cops. But they had this ability to disarm. And you know what? I think what you just said, where they gave people permission to not take themselves so seriously. They take what they do seriously, but don't take themselves so seriously, you know?
Yeah, that was well, Tom Robbins is another fellow that emerged at about that time too. You hip to Tom?
Please, no, hit me,
Even
dude. Hit me, no, hit me.
Even cowgirls get the blues.
He's a musician, or what was it? Well, no, tell me about this guy. He emerged at that, what was his niche?
Well, he's a writer. He writes. He's a fierce poet, a wonderful poet. But he was based up around north of Seattle, and he wrote quite a number of very fine books.
Mm-hmm.
And one of his themes was loosen up.
Loosen up naturally. Loosen up naturally. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. He wrote a book called Still Life with Woodpecker, which is very funny. And the theme of the book is, how do you make love stay? So this was Robbins. He was a poet, and he's still alive and well. Every now and then I'd do a burst of reading from his work in front of a jazz group. And I would encourage anybody who likes lyrical writing to investigate Tom Robbins, Robbins. But I read a lot, an awful lot.
Well, I mean, it's great. I mean,
stay home.
No, I mean, well, my first two books. One is a collection of interviews with really the major studio musicians from the 60s and 70s, the guys that were doing jingles and cartoons and soundtracks and movie albums and all the iconic LPs. And then there's the section on the Wizards, which are musicians that I feel that created new musical vocabulary on the bandstand and very iconic name figures in music. And then the second book is called A Bus to Never Everland, which is basically my baby. I mean, even though I never saw the Dead, and I really never, I mean, I've hung with Babs and, Walker quite a bit, but I never saw the Dead. I didn't know Kesey at all. But it's the people that paved the way for bands like the Grateful Dead to exist. And, I just wonder about did you have a voracious appetite for live music in your life?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
When did, and then
I was a Broadway musical fan. Oh, yeah. I knew and was able to sing the lyrics from all of the popular Broadway musicals, My Fair Lady and Fiddler on the Roof and I Do, and those sort of things.
What about what about like MacArthur Court? Like, were you going to see jazz rock bands? Did you ever get to see Mingus or Coltrane or Miles or those cats?
No, they didn't appear in my sphere of influence. I became really interested in jazz early '90s.
And what got you? What got hooked you into jazz at that? What caught your tail?
Well, just acquaintance with musicians. Phil Dietz had a pretty sizable influence on my tastes in theater and music, and he, like I say, was real close with Kesey. So that's I kind of swirled into that crowd as a result of Phil's influence.
Can you talk about is he still with us today?
Oh yeah, he is publishing haiku on Facebook every day.
Well, no, I'd love that. Can you talk about what his legacy is to the Eugene scene? I mean, he seemed to be, if he was straddling Izzy's carnival and Kesey's carnival, he must have been out of his mind.
Well, he was active in theater. He had attended, he'd gone to and was active in a group that was doing some very good stuff. It was a small group, Terra Nova Theater, and the woman I was married to at the time, she and I enjoyed going to theater and encountered Phil and a group of very talented actors at that time. And music was always a part of the presentation. So I just kind of changed seats, got into the heavy jazz. My wife now, her son is a King Hell bass player himself, and a good friend of Arzenia's, Kenny Reed, was the leader of Stone Cold Jazz, real fine drummer. Kenny croaked about a year ago. We threw a big party for him down at the Vets Club, and I have a big backyard party every year. We don't not having it this year, but we had about 80 people in the backyard listening to Stone Cold Jazz last August, and it's sort of taken over my musical taste.
We lost. I don't know if you know this cat. I didn't ever get a chance to interview him, even though I tried really hard. He was in a monastery for most of the last part of his life. One of the greatest. He revolutionized the upright bass. Is Gary Peacock? Do you know that name?
No, I don't.
Yeah, he passed away. Gary was, with Scotty. This is early '60s, but when the bass was, not just they were expanding the voice of the bass, not just to a timekeeper, but an actual melodic voice. It was him, Scotty LaFaro, and guys like Chuck Israels and Peacock played with everybody from Jack DeJohnette to Ravi Shankar and old school badass, and he left us. There's such an intertwining in improvisation, in improvisational music and improvisational theater. It makes it so special, and it just seems like that collective, all the different collectives that we've been riffing on, just that milieu is so special, and I wish that it would come to some kind of pop level in our society. I know I'm being Pollyannish, but it's so vital for human growth, and I feel like you're blessed because I'm 42, and I mean Sail Bus, and you guys are the salt of the earth people, man. I mean this is like really heavy time right now, and I'd like to look towards the light, and you guys seem to still be projecting that light. Even Babs and Walker, it's still bright. That light is still bright, and that's what I'm seeking. There's no other alternative because it's so dark right now.
Back then, America was great.
Why?
Little humor.
I mean, are you saying that sarcastically? Because we've never had we've had corrupt people, but we've never had literally an autocratic racist or bigot in the White House who just,
No, those were better times. They were simpler times. They were less hateful times.
Why is the hatred growing? Let me ask you, why, in your mind, why have we gotten, hatred comes from, fear. Fear comes from not knowing. In the past, it was like Dietz, Izzy, Kesey, Arzeni. If the unknown was something to be approached, the unknown was enticing, the unknown was exotic. I mean, how many times did freaking, Rahsaan Roland Kirk go back and trip out at La Honda or play at the Poetic Hoo-Ha festivals? It was like you dove into the unknown. But when you don't know something, you begin to fear it, and that turns to hatred. So how have we gotten to that point?
In my case, is that I never felt insecure.
Right.
There was a reality to return to after my little bouts of crazy.
But I mean, you grew up. I mean, I struggle with the word. I struggle with the word racism because I've been operating on this certain frequency on my show where I've interviewed so many cats from all over the world that I believe we're all one human race, and that there's cultural bias and systemic bias within culture and within communities, so that people are born and they come out of the womb. They're not born to hate, but they grow up and they learn certain words, derogatory words. That's what those people are. They're subhuman, and then that's the only thing they know. So, did you always grow up essentially being colorblind and accepting of all people? Because I think that's the most corrosive effect is just this person's ability in the White House to how many younger cats are being corrupted now with this vile, very narcissistic and incredibly shallow viewpoint.
Well, in my experience, growing up in Lily White, northwest Nebraska, we had no black people. We had 3 black people, and they were older people who worked in the hotel, and they were very well respected and liked. They were probably in their middle 60s, 2 brothers and the wife of one of the brothers. And they were called the Gans boys because of this very popular black boxer, Joe Gans. But they were called the Gans boys, slangily. We had the Sioux Indians. Now, they were the ones that were looked down on. And when I came to Oregon, they had black people. And I met some of them, and they were pretty sharp guys, and they were good athletes, and we prized the good athletes in northwest Nebraska. I was a jock for years, and
no doubt.
So it was easy to accept a good athlete who was black, in my case, and it was difficult to change groups to look down on.
So let me ask you, hold on, I want to be clear, because, I mean, it's just so, not that I have first-hand experience, but I've interviewed a lot of my peers and younger black artists, and, the ghettos are so depraved now, and there's only certain avenues that men especially feel like they can get out from the ghetto, and that one of them is sports. I mean, you could relate to them at that jock level, but, I mean, were they accepted? Would you accept them as articulate intellectuals in all different types of fields, or was it mainly?
Well, they were. They were articulate intellectuals and athletes.
Right, but I mean, like you were able to see them in all, because I thought you just said that you were able to see them. I mean, because you grew up in northwest Nebraska, where sports is paramount, you were able to relate to them and not see them as subhuman. But across the board, I mean, I guess maybe in general, do you think that that we're going backwards as it relates to equal rights?
I don't know how to address that right now, Jake. That's there are areas in which they are doing better, and areas in which they are doing much, much worse. But in my personal experience, as far as being athletes and intelligent people, they were better than I was.
Right. Well, no,
they were better than I was, and
I mean, listen, you recognize that. Here's the point: nobody's better than anybody else, but I mean, you recognized their genius, and a lot of people want or resent that, and then they just don't want to even acknowledge it, and that's where the subhuman treatment comes in, and it goes way back to the beginnings of how this country even started. Izzy, we just cooked here for 71 minutes. I mean, we're just getting started. I would love to do a set two with you in the near future.
And I'm rather disappointed that we have come to speak of race, because it's a topic that it's very disturbing right now.
Can you just say that again? You were disappointed that we talked about it, or just
that this has it always ends up being a focal point of any conversation. I'm pretty political.
Well, you know what? I want to tell you something, man. I mean, and I'm so grateful to Sail Bus for connecting us. But man, I told you before, I mean, like, I was naive enough at Boston University in the late 90s, where I went to undergraduate, to believe that we were living in a post-racial society. And then when Obama got elected in 2011, I started to see this fever, or this sort of inclination towards subhuman, or in just a different level of treatment. And literally, Izzy, I started my show in January of 2011. I'm over 10 years on this. I was talking about this stuff 10 years ago with black musicians who were who from the 40s and 50s. And so I know what you're saying as far as, like, in this time that we live in now, and I'm not saying I'm a prophet. I'm just saying this stuff's been on my radar over 10 years since I started my show, because I wanted to find the truth. And I recognize that pundits and media analysts and lawyers, it's more lucrative to not solve the problems than solve the problems. So I went towards people that would tell me the truth. And I've done 2,000 radio interviews with cats from your generation, and from all, and the beautiful part of it is that music was one of the most effective ways of integration and the melding of society together. The desegregation of the army started because of music. And it's horrifying to see some of the stuff that we now see, because we're all interconnected. But I got to tell you, I mean, I've been on this trip for a lot longer than since this became, a boy. I just couldn't believe the insanity. Like I said, I thought we were living in a post-racial society. And I'll send you a few interviews so that you can listen to them, because, ultimately it's my daughters and their generation. My daughter is multi-ethnic. They're I think that's, it's I don't know what's going to be left for them, but I pray enough so that they can steer the ship in a direction of recognition of who the human being is, and nothing based on the color of their skin. And also on top of that, just the idea that I think that I love spiritual people, but Christianity has done more hurt and damage in this country than racism. It was the rich plantation owners, duped the less educated indentured servants into believing that they could enslave people because they were black skinned, so they must not be Christian. So it's complex, but it's not something that I've just gotten hip to since Black Lives Matter or any of this stuff, and because it goes back hundreds of years. And the bottom line is, until we can actually not just acknowledge our history, but like solve these issues, whether it's reparations or whatever it is, we'll never be able to make progress.
Well, there have been so many examples of black people being intelligent, competent, honest, and honorable, and contrasted with so many examples of members of my racial persuasion being the exact opposite and attaining high office that the hypocrisy is inescapable.
Well, I guess all I can say is, if you haven't already, go out and cast your vote this fall and keep being Izzy, and just keep trying to affect positive change in your world, man, because that's all the control we have. And I think you'll be all right because you've been doing that pretty much all your life.
Well, I live in Oregon, where we have universal mail-in voting, and it's fraud-free.
Yeah, that situation petrifies me because I even told my parents, I said, there's no damn way I'm using any mail-in. I'm going that day and punching that ballot. I'm not leaving it up to anything, man. I know you guys are also going through, not Eugene per se, but some horrific lack of leadership on, just a deplorable situation going on in Portland. And, I've always loved it up there. In fact, I always thought I'd wind up living up there. But the weather, it's too much, not enough sun. I'd get a lot of depression, but it's such a magical place. And,
hey, after living in Nebraska for 18 years, a little rain ain't going to depress me.
Oh, man. Izzy, I love you. We'll do part 2 real soon. It's such a high honor to connect with you, man.
Okay, Jake. Next time, ask me about when I ran away to sea at the age of 61.
I think we got a lot more. We got a lot more ground to cover, man. This was just set 1.
Okay.
Yeah. Be cool. Be safe, man. And
stay in constant.
Yeah, be safe.
Stay in constant communication, Jake.
I'm never leaving you, Izzy.
Okay.
All right. Be cool, man. Have a good day.
Okay. Goodbye out there, America.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you next.
Hey, no,
time.
I'll get you. I'll be transcribing some stories and throwing. I'll send you a copy of this interview later today, man. We're blowing you up all over Facebook and new media.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Make me a household word.
Just like Sail Bus, dude. I mean, the lineage continues, man. The lineage continues.
Oh, we used to have the best conversations. Oh, Sail Bus, he's got a lot of stories to tell.
We are gonna be live on Instagram on Tuesday morning on the Sail Bus to talk about a whole bevy of things. We did. I don't know if you saw that interview we did. That was just the beginning of our the one I posted on Facebook. But it's pretty amazing, this stuff, even just out of his childhood. It was pretty insane.
Well,
yeah.
We sat in my back. Well, I got a glassed-in sunroom here at the house, and we've sat back there and smoked cigars and drank whiskey and talked for endless hours. And every time he left, we would both say, we should have taped this.
That's what I do. My point is that, it's okay because you've done enough artistic creation that's documented. It's just this stuff is gold. It just doesn't always shine. So it's just tremendous, man. We'll keep it together and we'll keep the bus moving forward, man. Have a beautiful day.
Same to you, Jake.
All right, peace out. Bye, Izzy. Beautiful day here on the Jake Feinberg Show. Thank you to Jim Parisi on Power Talk, and we will see you later.